Alright, so we have been working on a series. This is the second week, so we haven't been working on it for very long, but this is the middle. This is the part that, in the trilogy, it's usually the dip, the lull. That's not going to happen this morning. If anything, it's going to get even better. But we're looking at Matthew 20, where Jesus starts off with this parable about a landowner who has a vineyard and is going around all throughout the day, hiring people to come work in this vineyard. If you look in your Bible, you'll find it in Matthew 20, and it's verses 1 through 16. If memory serves me right, which it should, because I've been studying it all week long. And just as a refresher for those, we're zeroing in on going into the vineyard. We're zeroing in on that passage this morning. That's not a vineyard. I know that. But it's the only farming picture that worked that well. But that, look at that, gosh, would you? Just that is graphic design when at its best. Okay, for the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. And after agreeing with the laborers for the usual day's wage, he sent them into his vineyard. And when he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And he said to them, "You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went, and when he went out again at noon, and then again at 3 o'clock, he did the same thing. And at about 5 o'clock, he went and found others standing around, and he said to them, "Why are you standing here idle all day long?" He said, "Because no one's hired us." He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the ones that I hired last and working up to the ones that I hired first." And when those who were hired at about 5 o'clock came, each of them also received the usual day's wage. And the people who were hired first thought, "This is great. We are going to get even more." And when they received it, it was a day's wage. And so they grumbled, saying, "These folks worked only 1 hour, and we've labored all day in the hot sun." But the landowner replied to one of them, saying, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did we not agree for the usual day's wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to the last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I want with what I owe? Or are you envious because I am generous?" So the last will be first, and the first will be last. The word of the Lord. So last week, you'll remember, we started with our series at the end of the journey with what happens next. Now that we know the last will be first and the first will be last, this very confusing statement, what do we do next? And we looked at that passage as a way of setting up this new type of value system. That God doesn't operate in a market economy. God doesn't pay the market price. God pays the kingdom price. God pays what he sees as a value in each of us. And God has already assigned that value long before he even invited us into work the vineyard. So it's not about the achievements that we get. It's about being in the kingdom. And so this week I want us to try and delve a little further into that idea by trying to understand this theological headstand here. One of the greatest things that a professor ever gave to me was it's a little bit of wordplay. It's just a little quip, and it's that to understand something means you have to stand under it. And so today we're going to try to understand this headstand by standing under the headstand. If you're getting confused, then I've done my job. All right, so I've been in youth ministry for at least 10 years, and that's not including the time that I spent as a youth in ministry, which would bring it up to the grand total of nearly 15 years. So, one of the things that I've picked up over my time being a youth and then being a youth minister is that our students are exhausted. And rightly so. Carson, you'll agree. Carson, you get it. You get it. You just came back from working at a camp with other students, right? And you are a student yourself. You're doing how much reading over the summer?
2 whole books.
That is too many books. And one more book would be 3 many books. But this idea has remained consistent everywhere I've been. before iPhones, before social media, after iPhones, after social media. Work has always been loaded upon our students because they wake up in the morning and they get ready for their day, eating breakfast with their family, which is maybe family time for about an hour. That's a generous guess. It's probably closer to 20 to 30 minutes because you're looking for your shoes and you're trying to get out the door and you're trying to get your kids either to the bus or to school on time and drop them off, where they get to homeroom or their lockers and they're getting ready for their day, and then they change their group dynamic about every hour throughout the day because they go from one class to another class and their whole peer system changes because they're sitting in other classes with other students, and then they get to the end of the school day and it's 2:30 and now they have to go to practice or some extra lesson, learning piano or cello or harmonium, or they're working on an art project, or they've got an after-school assignment, or they've got beta club, or they've got something that they have to work on for church, because we like to give projects out at church also. But then they get to the end of the day, it's 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock, they're finally home, they get to eat dinner with their family who they saw at the beginning of the day, and hopefully they all still recognize each other because it was 12 hours ago. But they get home and they're eating together, and then you get to relax, right? No, you've still got homework to do. You've got maybe 2 or 3 hours of homework that you've got to get done because it's all due the next day because you forgot about it last week. But of course you did, because you had so much stuff to do. How can you possibly be expected to keep track of all the stuff that you have to do as a student? And why do we do this? Well, it's because we want our students to be as well-rounded as they possibly can be, right? We're talking left and right brain. We want them to have language art skills and be able to communicate, but we also want them to be able to read music and play the violin or the piano. And we want them to be athletic and good-looking and charming and all of the other things that Garrison Keillor would call the Lake Wobegon syndrome. And we want them to be as complete a person as they possibly can be. But it's exhausting. And what is it for? It's because we want that whole 18 years of growing up to boil down to 2 pages of a resume? Because a college admissions officer or an employer is sifting through so many resumes. Anything beyond 2 pages just gets lost. So if your most important achievements are on that 3rd page, you better bump them up to the top of the list if you want them to get seen. It's madness to try to boil down nearly 2 decades of living to just 2 pages. Bullet points of achievement. Many of you know John Westland as a youth pastor or campus minister here from Fayette County. I knew him as my campus minister at Middle Tennessee State University, and later on as a colleague and a friend. In fact, he lives just down the street over here, so if you want to pay him a visit, you totally can on your way home. It's so easy, and it'd be a blast for him, I bet. So he became a mentor over the years, and one of the greatest things that he taught me was that college provides okay job training. It's all right at what it does. It's not great because, well, let's face it, your professors aren't really concerned with you as a student beyond the end of the semester. They want you to turn in the work, they want you to get a good grade, but they want you to do the work, and if you don't, well, that's not really any skin off their nose because a new crop of students is coming next semester and they have to focus on that anyway. But what you get from college, you get a vocabulary, maybe you get some words to use in a professional situation so you don't sound like a dummy, but you get to use these things maybe in your internship. But then you learn other words and you learn other shorthand and you get better on-the-job training on the job. And so why go through college if you get better on-the-job training? Well, John taught me that it wasn't really on-the-job training. The university experience wasn't merely so that I could get a better job. That wasn't the point of school. If school is your thing, if school is the thing you're going towards, and you want an education, and you want a master's degree, and you want a doctorate, you're a crazy person, but that's a good system to get into because it develops you. It's one way of developing you as a whole person. When you're sitting in Western civilization listening to a lecture about why Eastern European Jewish people have a shorter meal prayer than Western Jewish people, that's maybe not going to come up a whole lot, other than the fact that Well, everyone likes a hot meal, so why would you waste time praying over it while it's getting cold? But you get to study world civilizations, you get to study theater appreciation, you get to study all of these little things that mount up into you becoming a more complete citizen of the world in a sort of shorter timeline. In 4 years, you get all of this new information. And by that I mean that you're not just getting a prerequisite out of the way. You're not just trying to get to the final at the end of the semester. You're trying to be more present in the time that's right before you. And that's the gift that John Wesley gave me, was to quit worrying about the next assignment, but to worry about working on the assignment as it was given out. To quit worrying about the final at the end of the semester and to start worrying about the students who are sitting next to me during the semester. Now, it's true that if I had worried more about that final at the end of the semester, I probably would have spent less time in college. I was in college for most of the 2000s. I was in college longer than, well, let's say pop music was a thing. Before it became EDM, electronic dance music, before, some bands had whole careers in the span of time that I was in college. But John Westland, in those moments, gave me a sense of purpose. I wasn't waiting for some credential to come along to validate me at the end. I was being called out into the vineyard that very moment. And too often we worry about whether or not we're credentialed enough, whether we have the right thing on our resume, whether or not we have enough to move forward. And we forget to see the very thing in front of us that we're currently prepared for. Are we aware of how valuable we are right now? We looked at how God values us last week. Now we need to look at how we value ourselves. Back in January, when we were going through an unseasonably warm winter, Emily and I were out to dinner at a taco spot that had some sidewalk seating. It was a lovely evening. And next to us, there was a couple that had brought their dog out for a walk, a Great Dane, this enormous beast that probably wouldn't have fit anywhere inside a building, so they had to eat outside. But this dog was totally a puppy. I mean, this dog's paws were the size of our dinner plate, and it stood about the height of the table, but it was scared and skittish of absolutely everything, and hilariously so. He was a total Marmaduke. He had no idea how big he actually was. And so this dog, this ferocious little tiny indoor pony, was standing next to the table, cowering behind this couple as they were eating their nachos because a pair of corgis were coming down the sidewalk. He was so scared of these tiny little dogs that were about the size of maybe this dog's toothbrush because he had no idea how big he really was. He was stuck in a fear behind a pile of nachos and insecurities. And I have spent a good amount of my time stuck behind those same nachos and insecurities. And how often do we find ourselves in that position, waiting for something or someone to validate us when we're already being called out into the vineyard? Many of you know that I've been pursuing ministry as part of my get-rich-slow scheme. Part of the process includes some education on pastoral care. How do you be present with people and care for people in the moment? And as a friend of mine was going through her experience as a hospital chaplain intern, she was faced with this question of how best to begin conversations with patients, how best to begin a natural conversation. And she was afraid of being perceived as rude or bossy or intrusive as people are having procedures done or they're waiting around. Like, it's a very sensitive time in people's lives. The hospital, it's rare that people are just checking in because they're a little hungry and need a nap. She was afraid of all of these perceptions and starting up conversations with strangers in her effort to provide pastoral care. And what her supervisor told her was kind of great. He said, these patients already have a picking up point for conversation. If you want to start a conversation with someone, sure, it's a little dumb, but you go in, so how are you feeling today? Easy enough, because everyone's got an answer for that. He said the door is already propped open for that. Everyone is already expecting you to show up. All you have to do is push gently on that door, and you'll be surprised how far people will let you in. how would that change our lives if we constantly lived under this impression that people were already expecting us? What would it change if we acted like they were prepared for us, instead of worrying about what would happen if we never acted at all? So we see this all throughout scriptures, right? Like, this is not a new thing Jesus is bringing up to the Jewish people. It goes all the way back to Moses and Abraham, where God's telling these outlandish things. Abraham, you're going to have a child in your 90s. Moses, you're going to go lead the Israelites out of Egypt. And Moses tries to weasel his way out of it. He tries to argue his way out of it, saying, God, no, I'm not. Exodus 3, no, God, I'm not a good orator. In fact, here are a lot of really well thought out points about why I'm not good at public speaking. And I can tell it to you in all of the TED Talk fashion. Like, Moses is giving a pretty good argument for why he's not good at arguing. In Judges 6, Gideon tries to get all these signs. God, I'll leave a fleece out. If you're really calling me to lead your people against the Midianites, I'll leave a fleece out. And if the dew is just on the fleece but not anywhere else, then we'll go. And then the next day, all right, God, that was pretty good, what you did with the fleece. Let's try it again. We'll leave the fleece out, but then the dew on everything but the fleece this time. And God does it again. He's like, oh, you're good. You're good at this. Let's see how far we can go with this. And God is just going, no, I've actually called you. It's true. Early on in the church history, Acts 15, we haven't even gotten 15 chapters into there being a church, and they're already arguing about, well, who's in and who's out? Did Jesus really die for everybody, or was it only the people who were circumcised? Because, I mean, we got circumcised, and it doesn't seem fair that other people shouldn't have to. And so, God responds each time. In Acts 15, verse 9, Peter says, He has made no distinction between us and them, but purified their deepest thoughts and desires through faith. God responds to Gideon in Judges 6:14, You have strength, so go and rescue Israel from the power of Midian. Am I not personally sending you? And in Exodus 4:14, God actually gets angry at Moses. It says, God's anger was kindled against Moses. And you can tell, like, God's kind of trying to rear back a little bit because God's angry, but he's saying, what about your brother Aaron, the Levite, who is actually a really good speaker? I know he can speak very well. He's on his way out to meet you now, and he's looking forward to seeing you. Speak to him and tell him what he's supposed to say. I'll help both of you speak, and I'll teach both of you what to do. Aaron will speak for you to the people. He'll be the spokesperson to you, and you will be like God for him. Just do it. Sort of that frustrating moment when you're trying to tell someone, hey, clean your room. Or, hey, would you mind getting that report in on the time? Maybe they're not so great. Maybe they're a little more type B, like me. Like, whatever, it'll get in when it gets in. And you're a little type A, and you're going, well, please get it in. Because you are so frustrating. But you say it with a smile on your face. What always catches my attention in all of these passages is God's divine patience with these highly anxious and insecure people that God has called. God doesn't relent saying, fine, I'll find someone else to do it. Or, you're right, what was I thinking asking you to do this? Of course I'm going to need to find someone more qualified with a better grade point average and 5 to 10 years experience, along with being fluent in 3 languages and well-versed in all 32 of Beethoven's piano sonatas. No, God simply says, you also go into the vineyard. Just like the landowner who never stops looking for people to tend to his fields, God never stops inviting us into the work of the kingdom. God has no graded prerequisites for entry into the field. Even those who we would deem totally out of line with our interpretation of Scripture, even those who we think have no business calling themselves Christians, God calls into the work of the kingdom. God doesn't look at the end of the workday saying, well, there's only an hour left. I don't know why I would go find more people. No, God says, even you come into the vineyard. God is asking again and again, why are you just standing around? So why are you just standing around? Why wouldn't you get started as soon as you can? Why would you waste any more time? What is it that you think you currently lack? You've been called out just as you are, right now, even at the end of the workday, to go out and begin working without fear, without anxiety, without prerequisite understandings of biblical Greek or Hebrew. You were prepared because God has been preparing the work for you to do. So, what do you see around you? What fields need tending in your neighborhood? What fields need tending in your workplace? How can the Summit Church go out into the work? Out into the fields to do the work. So I decided to go ahead and make a little challenge for us this week. Last week, the challenge was to write down, so the first will be last and the last will be first every day. You don't have to raise your hand if you did or didn't do it, but if you did, awesome, well done, extra credit, bonus points to you. So this week's challenge is I want us to try and connect with at least one person every day. And this is pretty easy. We see people on a daily basis. It's not hard to try and connect, but it's hard to find a meaningful connection. Some of you might remember, if you're on Facebook and you follow me, you might have noticed at one point I posted about being just sort of entranced by this linguine that I had twirling around my fork, and then I realized, oh, I haven't seen any other person in like 3 days. That was kind of a quick connection that I made for myself, like, oh, I shouldn't be this entranced. I maybe have spent a little too much time by myself. Connect with one person every day. And it can be the same person all 7 days, the same person every day, or it can be a different person every day, but just connect with one person all 7 days. And I want to put some parameters on it. All right, you get one non-verbal reaction. It's like a text message or an email, but you only get to count one of those as your connect. With my students at Roswell Pres, I created this weekly challenge of sending out 3 emojis every day to someone. And that was going to be our connection. That was going to be our sharing the light of the world, our passing of the peace, was going to be sending out these emojis as a way of saying, I see you, I'm thinking about you, I know you, I acknowledge you. This is going to be our challenge for the week, to see, know, acknowledge, and connect with a person every day. And you only get one text message, one email. The rest of them have to be verbal. That can be a phone call, that can be in person. And bonus points if you share a meal with this person. It can be a family member, it can be a friend from work, it can be a friend that you just meet on the street. It can be someone, if you see the same person at the checkout counter at the grocery store every time you go to the grocery store, call them by name. They'll love it, because they have that name tag on there. You get to cheat, you get to be like, hello, Cassandra. And then they go, oh, yeah, because of the name tag. You don't have one, so I don't know who you are. But you have to see and acknowledge that someone is there. And in that way, someone will see and acknowledge that you're there. Someone will see and acknowledge you being the light and the salt of the earth. One of the biggest turnaround events in my college career at MTSU, my extended career, was when I decided to start meeting on a weekly basis with all of my professors. One day, every week, I would go see them outside of class. They posted their office hours, and they're always amazed, hey, a student's taking me up on my office hours. How cool is that? And we would talk for maybe a few minutes at the beginning of the semester. It was maybe a 10-minute conversation. Hey, did I get the readings correct? Are we reading this? Hey, did I get the assignment right? We're supposed to be working on this? Yeah, good, okay, cool. And then not only did my grades start to get better, but the assignments and the nature of the class began to change, because the meetings throughout the semester got longer and longer and longer. And the professor slowly turned from Dr. Turner to Frank. From this professor to an actual person who had a life outside of class, who had a life outside of school, who had family problems, who had mortgage issues, who had all of these things going on in their life. They became a more complex and whole human being. And the same thing happened to me for them. They were no longer just seeing student number 3,954. They were seeing Drew Wolmshire. Drew Wolmshire is coming to meet with me. Fantastic. We're going to find out what's going on in Drew's life. Oh, cool. You live at a campus ministry house? That sounds wild. What goes on? What does that even mean? Like, are you just in prayer all the time? Is it like a monastery? I'm like, no, we were close. But Those weekly meetings normalized and humanized each other. And what happened to the campus in that last semester is it actually shrunk down its 24,000 student body into a family. I knew my students better, my fellow students better. I knew my professors better. I knew people on campus better. And it went from being this lonely, huge, institutionalized place to feeling more like a home. And how amazing would that be if we transformed our places of work, if we transformed our neighborhoods, outside of places where we store our bodies and our stuff, and made it feel more like family, and made it feel more like home. So here, no matter where you are, whether it's the beginning of the day, 9 in the morning, noon, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, God has found us and has told us, you also go into the vineyard. If an institution like MTSU can be turned on its head like that, then surely we can learn to stand on our heads long enough to see our own world turned upside down. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, let us go to God in prayer. Gracious God, help us to live in a new kind of place where we can stand on our heads for longer than a few seconds. Long enough to see the kingdom of God right side up. To know and understand what it means to be a headstand theological people. To see you at work in the world and to join in on that work in the world. To go out into the vineyard. To know that we are valued. To know that we have been called and prepared, that we don't have to wait on anything, that there's no measure of success that can determine whether or not you've called us. God, simply let us hear you and let that be enough. All of these things we pray in the name of your Son,